All right, welcome to our third and final part of our report card series. This time we're diving into nutrition and sleep and recovery.
And if you haven't listened, especially to our first one on this, and it was report card and it said strength and power, go there first. We dive in a little bit more depth of the why behind all of this. We're just going to jump right into this today, sleep and recovery.
Yeah, so real quick speed run on what we talked about so far. Objectives for the day, continue to introduce the report card and dig into the nutrition and sleep and recovery sections. What is the intent of the report card? It's a helpful goal-setting tool. I'm going to give you mainly outcome goals to provide direction, some process goals to provide the plan. Won't dive as much into identity goals, but those are just as important for you as you go through these benchmarks. Right? It's a way to celebrate and share milestones along the journey, and a way to ensure you don't miss low-hanging fruit, especially with these sections. I think I probably can't emphasize that enough with these two sections. Sometimes people are training for a while, but then, I thought you were doing way better with your sleep. We hadn't talked about that yet. So this is a way to make sure we don't miss some of those things in the early stages of training. Okay. So, overview of what the report card is again: mobility, strength and power, conditioning, nutrition, and sleep and recovery sections with good, great, and elite benchmarks and practices for each. So let's zoom into nutrition. Okay. We've done a good talk called our non-negotiables for nutrition, kind of deep diving these things. So we'll be a little briefer on the nutrition section today, but that's kind of where these things are coming from, right here. What are our non-negotiables that we want everyone to do? So for our good section, we would love if everyone in the gym and everyone in the world was doing these things, right? Are you 80% consistent with getting 0.7 to 1 grams of protein per pound of body weight per day? Getting 5 servings of fruit and veggies a day to check that, getting your whole foods bucket, getting some micronutrients, and eating slowly to 80% full as a simple way to manage your total intake, right? This would be amazing. You'd be crushing it if you were even just doing this.
And again, a reminder, 80%, we're not 100%. This is not perfection here. This is something that you do. It's part of your identity. These are just the basic things I do. You look at your last week. Yep, check.
Yep.
I missed this meal, but I got this one and this one and this one. Cool, great.
Boom, love it. Okay. To take that a little further, okay, we're going to do all those good habits. We can't skip those. We're going to do all those habits. Plus, now we're maybe getting even a little bit more whole food focused. Maybe 80% plus of your intake comes from whole food. So not just getting your 5 a day, but maybe all your other carbohydrate and fat sources and protein sources and all that stuff is mainly whole food based. Okay? And then we also have some planning and shopping and preparation skills in place to make these things easier. Right? If you're really helter-skelter, kind of living by the seat of your pants and just running through drive-thrus left and right, it's going to be really hard to do these practices. Right? So before we get any further, we need to make sure we have these skills in place before we even try to do anything more in depth than what we've already talked about so far.
And our good, great, elite, if you go back to our first one, we were talking about top 20%, 10%, 2.5%. These are things that we would love everybody to do across the board. Everybody could be considered elite in this when we get to that. But again, it starts with these simple steps, and we just slowly progress, get 1% better.
Yep. And then our last section here, our elite section, would be a greater level of consistency, or 90% consistent with all the prior habits. And then plus, potentially you're using a tracking method of some kind, whether that was calorie tracking or what we more commonly use is palm tracking, hand portion tracking, palms of protein, handfuls of carbohydrate, thumbs of fat, and fists of veggies, something like that. Either you're doing that, or maybe you've met a personal body comp goal already. That doesn't have to mean you're stage level shredded. To say, no, I'm comfortable with where my body composition's at, so I don't need to be any more in the weeds of tracking than I currently am. Great, right? Another thing you might be doing as you get more into the weeds of your nutrition is supplementation, right? So some common ones that we recommend for people just based on common deficiencies in the Western diet are creatine, vitamin D, getting some omega-3s, but you also maybe are doing blood work and recognizing, I specifically have deficiencies here, and I'll add that in, right? So if we're just getting our big rocks, protein, micronutrients, appropriate total intake, a lot of those things will take care of themselves. So a lot of people want to skip to supplementation before they're doing the good habits. Let's hit these things first and then get there as needed. And again, not everyone will need to get to elite. Not everyone needs to get into using a tracking method. It's just a tool available to you if you're trying to get more into the weeds with things. But again, on this section, can't reiterate enough, mastering the basics will take you really far. Yeah. Cool. All right, so moving on from nutrition to sleep. But again, if you want to hear more about those things, hit our non-negotiables for nutrition talk that we've done in the past. So moving on to sleep and recovery. Our good section, again, things that we'd love everyone to do. Start with sleep. Can we sleep 7 to 9 hours a night? Every time we talk about sleep, I quote Peter from the first time we talked about sleep. I don't know anyone who feels great who sleeps like crap. It resonated with me so much. So again, are we getting that volume of sleep that just leads to the proper recovery and is kind of the root of all of this? Okay. Second bullet point here, something that we're trying to be better about talking about more often in the gym, and putting in this resource will force us to do so. Do you breathe from your diaphragm by default? Is that your default way of breathing? A lot of people, when they come into the gym, are predominantly upper chest breathers. When they breathe and when they're talking to me, I see their neck muscles engaging and flaring, and that's more of our fight or flight method of breathing. We have these secondary respiratory muscles to help me run away from the bear so I can really bring in a large volume of air. But in our modern day life, the shift to me being in fight or flight mode all the time because I'm stressed about traffic and work and deadlines can get people stuck breathing in that mode, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, that can then keep me in fight or flight mode and not allow me to shift towards my parasympathetic recovery mode, which is what the whole goal of this section is. So sometimes we're trying to do a bunch of other practices and that isn't in place yet. It can be a big sticky point.
And some of you guys are getting little cues to say, how am I breathing? A good example is like, how's my pec, subclavius, kind of first rib, neck just to the side? Are those things stiff? If those things are stiff, they're probably chronically overused. Yeah. So, one, focusing on getting a little more breath, like I said, through the diaphragm, feeling the lungs, feeling the belly, feel everything expand there, versus a lot of elevation of the shoulder girdle, especially at rest or at easy movement, like I said, with the walking. And then, like I said, doing a little bit of some soft tissue stuff, just to get those guys to kind of let go, so you're less likely to want to breathe through the upper chest and more through the torso.
Yeah, like we said with the sitting section, if I'm sitting 12 hours a day, my one hip flexor stretch isn't going to really do anything. My 2 minutes of upper trap soft tissue work probably won't do too much if I'm taking 20,000 breaths a day using my neck, right? So it's really, really valuable to get that set properly. Yeah. And then our third bullet point here in the good section for sleep and recovery is getting some outdoors time, getting outside 30 minutes a day. Now, this can be the first domino that knocks down many things. Generally, you're moving a little bit more when you're outside, getting some vitamin D from outside, but there is just a huge connection to nature exposure, sunlight exposure, and recovery, and your body shifting towards more of a parasympathetic mode. So we evolved in that world, and our world's gotten more and more concrete and steel, but can we get more outdoors time?
And just having the natural light from the sun, depending on the time of your day, is also helpful for circadian rhythm, which we'll dive into further. But I also love this one mainly because it's such an easy one to stack with other habits, with your daily steps, with some of the mobility. There's just so many things that will be helpful with this that you can combine. So that's why this is one of our basics. And so many people spend so much time in a car, in their office, at their house, and finding ways, how can I get outside just a little bit? That's what we're not asking for anything crazy, but just a little bit per day, rain or shine, in my opinion, it's worth it.
Love it. Okay, so moving on to, great, we're going to take these things a little further. How can we consistently be someone who gets morning sunlight, right? We've talked about that in some of our sleep pods, so that's a big anchor for your circadian rhythm, is getting 5 to 10 minutes of sunlight in your eyes on a sunny day, ideally closer to 20 to 30 on a cloudy day, to let your body know this is the morning, I am awake, and it sets a timer physiologically that makes you sleepy 14 to 16 hours later. On the other side of the day, do we have an evening wind-down routine in place? We did a whole talk just on this. That can vary a lot what that looks like, but do I have some practice that helps my body know it is now time for sleep, right? And if I'm doing those two things, you're probably doing the last thing, but this would kind of be a good indicator of your success here. Do my sleep and wake time deviate less than 1 hour, right? So do I have a nice set circadian rhythm?
So Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, you're within that hour window. Some people, I'm going to catch up on my sleep. I'm going to sleep for 3 hours longer. But then boom, what does it do? You get your morning sunlight, but that morning sunlight is 3 hours later. It kickstarts 16 hours later. Now what do? You stay up later because you're not tired when you normally are. And you get up later again. All of a sudden we're like, what the heck just happened? I messed up Monday mornings. Why do you think everybody hates them? Well, a lot of it because people are trying to make up for that. And if you can stay in those sleep zones, it makes a world of difference. I would encourage, once people have that duration of sleep kind of down, if you need to cut off a half an hour, an hour, but to allow you to stay more consistent with your sleep-wake times, I would say that's more valuable because your sleep quality will improve through the roof.
100%. Cool. And moving on to elite, how can we get even better at being recovered? Do we have a consistent mindfulness practice? Again, this whole section is really about getting out of fight or flight mode and shifting to rest and digest, rest and recover mode. So whether this is a mobility practice that is also a mindfulness practice for you, whether it's a journaling or a gratitude practice or meditation, there's many things that could check this bucket, but do you have a tool that works for you to down regulate? Yeah. Then getting back to our outdoors topic from earlier, for being elite, can this be over an hour a day of getting some outdoors and nature time? The more naturey, the better. You know, a park would be better than sitting outside my concrete office building, and the ocean would be better than, you know, being in anything else. Like, the more nature it is, the better. But it's all a spectrum, whatever you have accessible, right?
And this doesn't need to be in a row. Broken up is great, probably even preferred. 10 minutes here for morning sunlight. I got a little walk at lunchtime. You know, I do something after dinner. I play with my kids. You know, boom. You can easily get that, and then maybe you get a little bit more on a Saturday, Sunday. You got more time.
Cool. And then, just like we said in the previous section, if you're having the morning sunlight evening routine, you probably have pretty good sleep-wake time consistency. Here again, if you're doing all these things, you're probably hitting this last checkpoint of having an average stress level of like 3 out of 10 or less, right? If I'm doing all these things but I'm still at a 7 out of 10 all the time, well, something's out of place still. I need to be better at the skill of down-regulating and shifting from fight or flight to rest and recover. So you don't want to give yourself the full stamp of approval of I'm an elite recoverer if my stress level is still a 7 out of 10. And that sometimes might be due to things outside of your control, but hey, just control what you can control to try to bring that average level down.
Wonderful. Great.
Cool. Yeah, so to wrap things up, let's take care of ourselves outside of the gym too, and continue to use this report card resource as a goal-setting tool, a guide for practices that are going to get you to those goals, especially in these sections, and don't use this as a foolproof indicator of your health, right? Don't let this cause you stress if you're not doing these things yet. It's just a guide for, hey, what you can work towards. Your trajectory matters much more than your current level.
And we really think if you guys spent some good time on this report card and just really being mindful and checking where am I doing well, is there any low-hanging fruit, and put a good dedicated effort to it over the next year, your lives will literally be transformed. How much better you feel, how much more present you can be in your relationships, you'll have so much more gratitude. Literally the world is your oyster if you can check a lot of these boxes, and it would be fun to check in on this in a year and see where you guys are at.
Yeah, and again, if you're just can't say enough of that good section is still so valuable. If you're someone who can squat to parallel depth, move your shoulders and spine through full range, deadlift your body weight, eat protein and 5 servings of fruit and veggies, sleep 7 to 9 hours a night, you're killing it.
Yes.
You know,
You're way better than the average.
And if you want to take it further than that, awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Enjoy.